The yeas are 427, the nays are 1. 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
This important interruption is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Protect your money and your identity. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code here to get ExpressVPN right now and save up to 73% on annual plans today. Right, let's get back into it.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Very special edition. I'm in London this evening. We've got Mally down the line in DC. The US Senate has unanimously agreed to send the bill demanding the release of the Epstein files straight to Donald Trump's desk. So earlier today, the US House voted overwhelmingly to make the Justice Department release files related to the deceased Jeffrey Epstein. The vote was 427 to 1. I wonder who the one was. Do we know who the one was?
It was a guy called Clay Higgins, and actually what he said was he was voting on behalf of people's privacy, and if something was misinterpreted, so, you know, that was the one. He's a Republican, by the way, too.
Brave man. Well, they're going to release these Epstein files now. Meanwhile, fresh demands are continuing to grow for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to testify in Congress. And earlier today, there was also this extraordinary moment in the Oval Office when a reporter asked about the release of the files.
Mr. President, why wait for Congress to release the Epstein files? Why not just do it now?
You know, it's not the question that I mind, it's your attitude. I think you are a terrible reporter. It's the way you ask these questions. You start off with a man who's highly respected, asking him a horrible, insubordinate, and just a terrible question. And you could even ask that same exact question nicely. You're all psyched up. Somebody psychs you over at ABC. They're going to psych it. You're a terrible person and a terrible reporter. As far as the Epstein files I have nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. I threw him out of my club many years ago because I thought he was a sick pervert.
I said he was a pervert. I kicked him out of my house. He's been consistent on that. Let's talk to White House reporter for The Hill, Julia Manchester. Julia, thank you so much for joining The Late Show Live. Do you know who the reporter was there today? I think she was from ABC, wasn't she?
Yeah, the reporter was Mary Bruce, and she's a very well-known, well-respected reporter here in Washington. But we know that President Trump has sparred with ABC News and ABC, the company, a lot of times in the past. You'll remember that, of course, Jimmy Kimmel, the late-night comedian, made comments that were controversial about Charlie Kirk's assassination, and then we heard the Trump administration calling on ABC News to take Kimmel off of air. So there certainly is a history here between the president and ABC News, but certainly I would argue a legitimate question on a very big news day in Washington surrounding the Epstein files.
And his argument was you could have asked it nicely. You just came all aggressive, and obviously he didn't like that, did he? What happens now, Julia? Just tell us how big this is in Washington, D.C. tonight.
Every time you're online, your money and your identity are at risk. Scams now make up nearly 40% of all crime in the UK. That's thousands of attacks every single day. In Britain, someone has their identity stolen every 2 minutes, leaving victims with wrecked finances and years of stress. The threat is real, and you could be next. ExpressVPN is your shield against criminals. It locks down your devices, hiding your personal information and financial details from hackers, scammers, and anyone else looking to exploit you. So whether you're checking your bank, shopping, or just browsing, ExpressVPN makes you invisible to prying eyes trying to steal your money and your identity. ExpressVPN shields your data with military-grade AES 256 encryption. That's the same standard trusted by the US government to guard classified information. This is the highest level of online security you can get. So don't wait for disaster. Secure up to 14 devices at once and get powerful password protection. Real support is available 24/7 because cybercrime never sleeps. Save up to 73% on annual plans today. Every moment you hesitate is another moment you're exposed. Protect your money and protect your identity. Get ExpressVPN right now.
It's the biggest story in Washington, D.C., so big that I would argue it's eclipsing the visit of Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. In fact, we saw the House pass it nearly unanimously, the Epstein files bill. Then it went to the Senate, and we were earlier this afternoon chatting, could this vote happen on Thursday? Maybe it's Tuesday. How is he going to get this done in time before Thanksgiving? But it passed unanimously through the Senate tonight, and a White House official tells us, a senior official tells us that President Trump will sign the bill as soon as it gets to the White House. But logistically, I think we have some questions in terms of is it signed during this dinner, around this dinner? So we'll see when the president does indeed sign this.
And the Epstein files, Julia, it doesn't say, they aren't pieces of paper, which is what it sounds like. They are emails, they are tapes, they will be photographs. Is this what we're expecting that the public will have access to see?
Well, we really don't know what the public's going to have access to see and what will be released, what will not be released, what will be redacted. Of course, there's a lot of questions about the privacy of these victims and whether their names will be released. So you could see some legal challenges in courts like the Southern District of New York, for example, against the release of this or, the release of part of this. So I think that's the big question. What do we see coming out of this?
And why haven't we had the Epstein files released before now? What has the logic been from previous governments?
Well, Republicans would argue that the Biden administration avoided releasing these files, that it was never brought up, so they didn't move to release them. But I would say that a lot of the attention surrounding the Epstein files really ratcheted up during the 2024 presidential campaign, when you actually heard President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance campaigning in part, not only on this, but in part on releasing the Epstein files. We know that the president's conservative MAGA base really cares about this as an issue, and they would like to see this happen. And I think that's why you saw last week a bit of a fissure in the House of Representatives. You had Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nancy Mace, Lauren Boebert, Thomas Massie all join with Democrats to release these files. So all it took was President Trump kind of giving the green light to Republicans. That's what happened. And as they say, Republicans very much fell in line.
OK, Julia, great to see you. Julia Manchester there, reporter from the White House for The Hill, joining us from DC. Jennifer, let me just ask this. How will President Trump feel tonight, do you think? Because I've heard that these files are a problem for the Republicans. And if I'm wrong on that, by all means, feel free to tell me I'm wrong. I'm sure you will at home. But this is a Democrat bomb waiting to go off inside these files. It is Clinton. It is the guy that was running the Fed, Summers.
Yeah, Larry Summers.
This is not going to cause problems for the Republicans, and the Democrats have been negotiated and cleverly backed into a corner whereby they're demanding the expose, and it's going to backfire.
So I think it's going to be across all political parties. I think it's going to be across academia and science and politics and sports and entertainment. I think there are a lot of people involved everywhere, which is just a sad state of affairs. I think this is really good, and I think President Trump's actually going to feel relieved that the vote happened so swiftly, because the fact of the matter is he's at his lowest ratings ever right now in his second term of his presidency, and two of the issues that he polls very lowly on are cost of living and handling of the Epstein files. It's like 20%. He needs to get this off his back so he can move on.
Yeah, it's a very good point, Mally, isn't it, in DC? Because the MAGA base, one of the reasons they wanted to vote for President Trump is because they felt there was going to be transparency on these Epstein files. And for whatever reason, whatever's useful in there will not be useful anymore once they're out and about. Is it going to be a Democrat problem?
I think it's going to be a problem for Trump, and I think, as your other guest said, it's going to be a problem for people in power. We've seen people in power kind of across the political spectrum had interactions with Epstein and continued to have interactions with Epstein after we knew the terrible things he had been accused of, and he had been convicted of some of the terrible things he had been accused of. It's the first time, really, we've seen the MAGA base break with Trump. The reason Trump came out and endorsed this vote is he knew that it was coming to a vote and tons of Republicans were going to break away anyways. So instead of having that loss with him saying don't vote and then a bunch of Republicans do vote for it, he said, okay, I'm going to get ahead of this. I do think there's going to be one interesting thing we're going to see moving forward is whenever Trump signs this, the actual release of these files could be a bit complicated because in the bill it says if an ongoing investigation is happening, then they can redact some of those files. Well, Trump announced that there's that they're going to do an investigation into Bill Clinton. I don't want to get conspiracy theorist here, but if that gives him the cover to not release some of the files that pertain to him, then I think that's a way he creatively tries to get out of this problem. And when I say that, I'm not saying he has terrible things in there, but there's something in there that clearly he doesn't want out, and I think that they'll use that as a pretext to withhold some of those files.
Paul, do you think the British public care about the Epstein files? I got a bit of stick for not asking him about this, the President, when I spoke to him last week, but I was there representing GB News viewers and listeners, and I just think this leaves the British public a little cold, this story.
Yeah, people aren't that. I think it was, by the way, that was an incredibly unfair question that Jonathan Liss asked earlier. I genuinely believe that. There was no need for that. Of course, I mean, it's a massive coup, by the way. Congratulations, Bev. That was an
do you know what? We should tell people we are going to be discussing that, actually, after the next break. We're going to be talking about the whole Trump interview and how it was and everything else, all the behind-the-scenes gossip. But anyway, carry on, Paul.
I think in terms of the UK public, we don't mind a bit of sleaze. This is sleaze. I don't think it's going to overly impact Donald Trump, certainly not during the term of his presidency. I really don't think it's going to impact the Clintons as many would like it to. I think there's going to be enough redacted, enough plausible doubt that it really won't amount to anything initially. I just don't see it. We've never, if it did, if it was just warts and all, we have never ever seen anything like that, so I'd be very surprised. Yeah,
you just got to look at who's like fueling up the private jets tonight to escape. That's what I want to know. Right.